What's up, guys? No cold open this week. What the heck is going on? We usually have a funny clip or something to start the show with, but
Been so busy. I can only imagine how
so
busy you've
busy.
been.
Yeah,
So
we had
busy.
our hog roast today. So I just got back from it like less than an hour ago. Plus, we had two shows we did this week. We had the one on I just did this impromptu show on Tuesday because we hadn't done one in 2 weeks because my back had been putting me in a state of agony. So I finally was like, I gotta start talking about things because so much has been going on. And then
So much.
Wednesday we had the debate show, which I
I
guess
didn't
I'm
even
not the
watch
only
the
person.
debates.
You didn't watch the debate?
I don't watch no. Why? Trump's gonna win.
It was
Sorry.
yeah, he would. I mean, I yes, Trump will win for sure, but that doesn't mean what they say at debates isn't interesting. Doesn't mean that we don't want to know what people are saying. But my God, though, so I mean, it was painful to watch. Those of you who stuck with us through that stream on Wednesday, after the first hour of the debate, we were like, oh my God, when is this going to end? And apparently everybody else felt the same way because that was what the news was all saying too. They're like, yeah, Trump won the debate by not going. And
Yeah. And he was here in Michigan and it was a really fun night with the auto workers. It was really impactful what he said. And it's true. The
yeah,
Democrats are taking away the auto workers' jobs. And if they don't wake up and the UAW doesn't change their voting habits and the UAW doesn't hold their leadership accountable for who they donate to, they will be out of a job. And Michigan will cease to exist. We'll have maybe 5 million people in it. I can't imagine.
yeah, uh, yeah. I mean, I think we're going to be bleeding, jobs to other states from all the stuff that's going on. And it's funny because there's all this talk in Washington about a government shutdown and what a nightmare a government shutdown would be for a week or two. But yet with the auto workers, because people are saying, hey, what are they striking for again? And they're like, well, we're demanding a 40% pay increase and a 4-day work week. And then when people hear that and they're like, that should be nice. Why do you guys think you're entitled to that? And you would think the longer the strike goes on, the more public opinion is going to go against it. But yet in Washington, strangely, it's, oh, we're going to have a shutdown. We're going to have a shutdown. What's going to happen? What's going to happen if the government shuts down for a week? Oh, we got to stop a shutdown. And it's been the same. We've seen the same dance over and over and over again
Yes,
in Washington.
all the time.
It always ends the same way.
It
And
does.
yeah, and it ends with they get all their money, they get their back pay, they get a paid vacation. And I think what really goes on, like I worked in Washington when they had a shutdown in 2013 for like about 2 weeks. And I think what happens after a federal shutdown for like 2 weeks is the American people start realizing they don't need the government that much. And
Right? Right.
so then the lobbyists start panicking and Congress starts panicking like, okay, we got to end the shutdown right now because we don't want this to go on much longer before there's not going to be too much trouble.
I mean,
But
I love when our reps aren't in Lansing. I can like breathe easier because I
yeah,
no taxation. So, oh man. But I mean, I have friends that, get paid off the federal government. I feel bad for them,
yeah.
but
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, we're all trying to make a living, and obviously, some people's jobs involve contracting with the federal government, and that is the way that goes. But it also comes with a lot of benefits. You got a customer that always has more money and always wants to spend more money, which not everybody else gets to enjoy that level of privilege. But anyway, hey, welcome back to the show, Amber. It's good to see you again. Patty is not
it's
with
been
us
a
tonight.
while.
Yeah, it's always been too long. But yeah, Patty can't join us tonight, unfortunately.
He's off being an activist, whatever.
She got a promotion. She was the vice chair of the Wayne County 6th Republican Committee,
Oh,
and the chairman had to resign for health issues, and she is now the county chair effectively. So she's got all kinds of things she's got to work on right now. So which we miss her,
nice.
and I'm sure she'll be back on the show again sometime
That's
soon.
that's really, really great. That's the role Patty belongs in. Hi, Dwayne. I saw Dwayne today at
Oh yeah, where's
my
that?
event. We were in Monroe today at Representative DeSanta's farm. It was a
Oh
lot of
cool.
fun. A lot of fun. But yeah,
Right
Patty
on.
deserves it. That's really, really
Well,
great for Patty.
you missed our Washtenaw County hog roast, which we finally had today, which was awesome, by the way. This is Hold on, let me put it up. This is not the pig we actually ate, but that was like their demo pig.
So
But
gross. Why do you have a demo pig?
I don't know why they brought that, to tell you the truth.
Was it
But
real?
yeah, that's a real pig, all right. Yeah.
They
Yep.
just have a dead pig like lying around?
Where do you think meat comes from?
I get it, but you have a demo pig, so if you the pig you're cooking and then you bring another pig, and so like
I'm
what?
sure there's some reason why they had that. I don't know exactly what it is, but that was their pig. But no, it was a really great event. We had it at this guy's place, who I've known for a long time, who is like the coolest place you'd ever want to have a party. Let me see if I can find a picture of it real quick here. Yeah, I mean, he's got this amazing lawn that has, I mean, he's got everything. He's got, let me go to the full screen preview here. You know, he's got tables and chairs, and we had ping pong and foosball and cornhole, and he's got a
Oh, fun.
bar, and I mean, it's gorgeous, a gorgeous place, a chicken coop and a garden and all kinds of things, and it was just a perfect location. And we had the Trump Unity Bridge came by, so we got to let's see if I got the picture from the bridge. Actually, we had this one photo. Check this out. This was in the walk up to the to the place, and that was the outline of the Trump bridge on
That's
the
really
walkway there.
cool.
Yeah, wasn't that neat? And then
That's really neat.
the weather was perfect, and yeah, it was a great time. We had a lot of people
Weather
come, and
was
it was really
perfect.
cool. So that was my day. But all that to say, I didn't do much show prep for tonight because, well, we had 3 shows this week, but
Well, that's okay. I mean, we could talk so much about everything going on. I mean,
yeah,
I
there's
had the week from hell. I really did. I was emotional. That's why I didn't come on Tuesday. That's why I skipped Thursday's event. And I was just there's this stupid bipartisan voter summit coming up on the campus of OU.
oh yeah,
And I spent I think it was Tuesday emailing and messaging and talking to all of our representatives in Oakland County saying, "Hey, did you know about this? Did you get invited to speak?" Come to find out, none of the reps necessarily really knew what was going on from the Republican side. The
yeah,
slate was all Democrat. And I had people emailing me directly, texting me, because everybody got the email notice kind of from the Secretary of State's office that this was going on, a big voter student summit at OU campus.
yeah,
And the lineup was horrific. We're talking Noah
straight
Arget, we're
Democrats.
talking straight Democrats. So I was talking to, Ruth Johnson, who was a former Secretary of State, who would be great to talk about voter outreach. And I was talking to, Jim Runstead and all of these people, Anne Boleyn, and saying, "Hey, do you know about this?" So come to find out, they snuck an email to the reps in July saying, "Hey, do you want to do a breakout panel discussion during one of the, breakout sessions?" Not to be representative speaking like the other Democrats are, but a breakout session. So we're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And so I spent the greater part of the week, saying, "Hey, talk to this 501c3 to the IRS, report them for being nonpartisan, talk to the Secretary of State's liaison, the Stephanie chick. We need to get our voices heard." And I think it was. I'm getting the college Republicans to have a booth, hopefully there. I'm talking to the political director, who's a great guy and a really great person on campus, who's an asset to us. To try to be like, what the heck's going on? So that is on October 6th. It's on Friday next week. So if you're a student, or if you know a student, or if you're just curious about the voter process in Michigan, please sign up. Go to OCRP's Facebook page. The link's there to sign up. We have to get representation, fair representation, to this voter student summit on October 6th. It's pretty much an all-day thing, but it's going to be very beneficial to be at. Not to be a nuisance, because voter outreach is very important. Student outreach is very important. Getting people to be on our side is very important. So we can't be a disruptive nuisance there, but we have to be a Republican presence.
Yeah,
That was my little plug, but it was such a pain in the ass. Oh my gosh.
yeah, I've got the email pulled up here. I'm wondering if there's a way I can show it without showing my whole email on the screen. Probably not, but yeah, it's this event that's billed as a nonprofit. We just want to get out the vote thing, which what they do is they target by demographics. It's the same as with like MTV has had this sustained rock the vote campaign to get young people to vote. But of course, the reason why they want to do it is because young people vote Democrat. And
Right.
it's the same as we saw with the private funding of the 2020 election, where these nonprofits that are explicitly prohibited from doing electioneering are doing activities where they target Democrat districts where, oh, we're just promoting voting. It just happens we only target Democrat areas. And it's
Right.
a very cynical ploy that they do. And now that they're getting the colleges involved, and it's shameful, and especially with Oakland University, which, well, I
Very
remember,
shameful
yeah,
with Oakland. Yeah.
yeah, Oakland University. When I worked for Representative Riley, OU was in our backyard, and we were trying to help them out because their per pupil funding was like really, really low compared to every other state university. But then we did some kind of like campus tour of OU, and they're all like, "Let us tell you about all the diversity and equity and inclusion stuff we're doing, and all the things we're trying to do to get more foreign students to come." And da 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 da. And we're like, "We're trying to get you guys more funding, and you're telling us why we shouldn't." So, but that's
Yeah, I
OU.
did the Grizz Fest there where I handed out flyers and talked to people about who I was, the county
The
party
Grift
with the college
Fest,
Republicans. The Grizz Fest.
Grift Fest,
Grizz, like because they're
Grizz. Oh, oh, the
grizzlies, they're the
Grizzlies.
go
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
Sounded to me
it's
like
like a
Grift
whole
Fest, which is
well,
what the
you
universities
know.
really are. The Grift Fest.
I wish we could, yeah, there you go. But it's kind of like a big club organizations. And I was just going around to the clubs introducing myself because I think everybody should be a Republican. In the end, I think that that's the right way to be. It's not to go and to champion, um, not champion social issues. Social issues are a mindset. Social issues aren't real. They're made up to divide you. So
Yeah.
you need to champion for low taxes and freedom for all. So
Well,
I did
I mean,
that.
I'm not to say that social issues aren't important, but the thing I think is the issue is that it doesn't resonate well with students. You know, they they really are into um, well, they're into being anti-establishment until now that the Democrats have become the establishment, but they just go right along with it. It's so bizarre. It all really, I think, flipped when COVID hit, and all of a sudden, instead of being raging against the machine, now it's. I mean, I never
We
would have
are the
imagined like people
machine.
in their young 20s consenting to staying at home, but it's like a visceral hatred for Trump, I guess, and I think it's some maybe leftover animosity towards there's always the stereotype of liberals are original thinkers and progressive and trying to and being new, and conservatives are trying to roll things back to the old ways, and which is not the way things really work at all. But that's the perception that they often have. Uh,
Yeah.
anyway, we have a special guest tonight. I didn't know if we are going to get him in time. We were working
Cool.
out some technical issues at the top, but before I bring him on, I just want to show you. There is a new lawsuit that was just dropped
Oh, yeah.
a couple days ago. So let me bring this up on the screen, and then I'll bring him
Talk
on.
about voter voting stuff. This is going to segue into that. But this will be touched at the summit, I bet.
Yeah. So this is an article at the Grand New Party PAC website. Conservative lawmakers launched lawsuit to overturn deceptive amendments against election integrity, which I would assume means proposal 2. And here to join us to talk about that is actually that gentleman on the right there, Senator Jonathan Lindsay. Senator, welcome to the Rescue Michigan show.
Hi, Senator.
Hi, Adam. Hi, Amber. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. Do you hear us okay? We were having some issues before the show began, but it looks like, well, I see you have an earpiece, so I guess you can hear us all right.
I can hear you okay, and hopefully I'm coming through, and then hopefully the battery on my earpiece holds up.
All right, very good. So tell us a little bit about the suit. Hey, Patty's there in the chat. Hey, Patty, you're welcome to come on if you'd like. I did email you the link. But yeah, so tell us about this lawsuit. This just dropped a day or so ago. You and it looks like Representative Steve Carra, and I believe there's some others that were named here. Here we are: Rachel Smith, Joseph Fox, Jim DeSanta, Neil Frisky, Angela Rodriguez and Matt Maddock, Rep. Brad Paquette, Josh Shriver, and Senator Runstead. You guys filed this suit. Looks like there's a firm behind this. So, well, I mean, we have the story pulled up, but tell us what's this about, and we'll go from there, I guess.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks for taking the time to discuss it tonight. It was announced on Thursday this week, and it's pretty exciting. I mean, at the heart of the whole thing, just to give your listeners the clearest picture of what could happen on the other end of this. This lawsuit could entirely strike from Michigan's Constitution all of the changes that were made through Prop 3 of 2018 and Prop 2 of 2022. I think Prop 2 of 2022 gets a lot more play, but so the basic argument is that both of those sets of amendments were adopted through a process that totally cut the legislature out. And so this gets into a little bit of, political sciencey constitutional law stuff, but the U.S. Constitution is pretty clear. It says that the legislature has the job of setting the time, place, and manner of elections, and there are some ways that that can be overridden. For instance,
The U.S.
the federal
Constitution, you're
law.
saying?
The U.S. Constitution sets that out, and then our own Constitution in Michigan reiterates the same principle. And so what you see is that in Michigan, there are 3 different ways to modify our Constitution. They're all found in Article 12 of Michigan's Constitution. The first one is to have the legislature bring forward a proposal, and then the people vote on it. The second one is to have the people initiate a constitutional change. That's what was used for Prop 3 in 2018 and Prop 2 in 2022. And the problem there is that it totally cuts the legislature out of the process. So this is one of those big cases in terms of if it makes it all the way, and if there's a favorable finding, it would have a pretty big impact. Probably not just in Michigan, but in terms of understanding the proper way to go about these sorts of changes. And I think it's really exciting because, frankly, I've got so many people, my constituents, but not just in my district, all across the state, who have been asking the question, I mean, when are legislators going to stand up and do something about this sort of, it seems like coordinated effort by the other side to just destroy our elections, which frankly baffles me because, I mean, everyone, in my view, should want to have these fair elections. We all go out there, compete, throw our ideas on the table. And this is a really, I think, risky sort of play that Democrats in particular have embraced for quite a while, of saying, let's just knock out all the safeguards in elections and make them this sort of free for all, where it's not about ideas and competing on level ground anymore. It's about creating systems that that you can gain in your own favor. So we want to get away from that. We see some of the national polls, some of the more localized polls that say faith in our election systems is really taking a nosedive, and that's not good for anybody.
And by the way, I see some folks in chat who are asking about Prop 3. And to be clear here, because there's a Proposal 3 that I think people have well in mind, the abortion and child sexual mutilation proposal of 2022. But then there's a Prop 3 in 2018, which was the sort of the precursor to the 2022 election proposal. And this was to allow straight ticket voting, which the legislature had voted to eliminate. Automatic voter registration, and no reason absentee voting were the few things they did in 2018, but then they expanded a lot bigger in 2022. So these are both elections related proposals. So, I mean, the first question is, because one of the arguments that I thought I gathered from the article is that basically voters were deceived as to the intention of Proposal 3 when they were told that it was going to allow for, as if it was going to require having an ID to vote, when in fact it did the exact opposite and enshrined no ID voting. So is the argument, I mean, are we making a separation of powers argument? Is there an argument that there was fraud in how Proposal 2 in 2022 and the Proposal 3 before that were enacted? Because I don't have the case in front of me. Maybe it's someplace on the internet, but what's essentially, what's the argument that they're making on this?
We talked a fair bit about some of the deceptive tactics with Prop 2 in particular, but that was only by way of sort of getting ahead of talking to people about why you don't want this to be the process we use going forward, setting our elections, right? Because it's the process that was used to get us Prop 2 was very problematic, and I would argue that it would never have held up in the legislature. I mean, we wouldn't have looked at something and said, we're going to enshrine voter ID. This is what you're talking about. We made the argument about voter ID. Voter ID, showing ID to vote, is something like a 90-10 issue. 90% of people are sane and think that you should show show ID to vote, right? So the people who were running Prop 2 knew that, and they used that in their messaging. They said, you know, vote yes on Proposal 2 to enshrine voter ID in Michigan's Constitution. The
Mhm.
truth is, passing Prop 2, adding it to the Constitution, created a situation where we guaranteed the right to vote without photo ID. That's what it actually
Correct.
does, right? And
Yeah.
so, but to get back to your question, that is not the core of the legal argument. That is more of an
Hey, Senator, I think you might have hit the mute button. My mistake. Your audio just disappeared. Uh-oh. No, that didn't do it. It wasn't that. Uh-oh. All right. Maybe we'll get the senator back on in a moment or two. Something's going on there. AV issues, fun stuff. But are you there?
Can you hear me?
Now we hear you. Yes, you're back. Right.
Sorry,
I was about to put words in
right
your mouth.
middle of it. I know a very, suspenseful segment that I was doing. So all the arguments about what they did in Prop 2 to get it through are just illustrating why that process is so dangerous. But the legal argument itself is back to one that, you could call it partly federal or separation of powers. It could fit under a couple of different umbrellas, but it really is just argument about the mechanism that was used, that there was a breach here. The federal Constitution says that the state legislatures need to set the time, place, and manner of elections. There are several cases that have taken this up and made sort of different decisions about it, all the way up to the Supreme Court. What we're saying is that in this case, Michigan's Constitution defines the legislature very narrowly. It says it's the Senate and the House, and then for one particular purpose, the redistricting commission, it defines that commission as the legislature. And other than that, the power of the legislature is vested in the House and Senate. And so what we're saying is that any process that completely cut the legislature out, which in Article 12, Section 2, citizen-initiated constitutional change does cut the legislature entirely out, we're claiming that was unconstitutional from the get-go.
Gotcha. Now, do you think, because right now the Democrats in Lansing are trying to codify Proposal 2 from 2022, and a lot of you see some of the language either mirrored or in some cases even expanded. Are they going to say, "Oh, it's moot because we're just passing all these things into laws right now that we're in charge"? Is that you think that's going to be something they're going to try to use, and is that going to be unavailing, or what do you think what do you think is going to happen if by the way, this is a federal lawsuit, I assume, is that correct? Because you're appealing to the U.S. Constitution. So
that's right. It's a federal lawsuit, and
to
the point about the laws that have been enacted, it's actually a fascinating thing because this is both a good news, bad news situation. People who are listening and are worried about the way Democrats are passing these laws, the truth is that our lawsuit does not undo the laws they're passing. Right? That's a fight we have to keep fighting. And
right.
What it would do is change those constitutional provisions that really put a set of handcuffs on the legislature. Right. So if we win back, we could look at election law again. We could go back to the people and we could say, we hear you loud and clear. 90% of you want to have meaningful voter ID when we vote.
Right.
We could do that. Right now, there's a huge roadblock in the way of that. Right. We could go back to things like when I was in the military and I was voting absentee. I kept my home record right here in Michigan, but I had to initiate. I had to reach out to my clerk, and I had to say to my township clerk, "This is who I." Well, she knew who I was, but I had to go through the process, even though she knew who I was. I had to do the paperwork and say, "This is why I'm gone. This is why I need to vote absentee." A lot of people find that sort of system really, like, intuitively, it makes sense that if somebody wants to vote, they should probably initiate the process, right? So we would have the option to go back and have meaningful conversations about what good election laws look like. Whereas right now, those constitutional provisions that were really deceptively sold to the people of Michigan are, they're there and they're in the way of good election law. But unfortunately, even when we win, we won't immediately with one stroke fix all of the problems that have been created by some of the laws they passed, the statutes that are on the books.
Sure. But you're right, though. I mean, removing that constitutional underpinning of this stuff, I mean, otherwise it's a lot harder to reverse, because you can't just pass a law to amend the state constitution. You couldn't have a citizen-initiated law, for example, that would require voter ID if the Constitution of Michigan says you don't have to have you can't have voter ID, which, I mean, it's extraordinary to even think about what has been done to our state constitution with things like an individual right to sterilization is something no other state constitution in this country must have. And yet here we are. And, you know, I think it's great your case is highlighting this deception that was inherent in all this stuff, because nobody would have passed these things had they known what was actually in these. And so, you know, the deception was a big part of it. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like the challenge is going to be convincing a court. And my worry is courts tend to be very poor about a lot of issues, frankly, with public opinion. Cases that should have been heard just aren't heard. Like the biggest one, of course, in 2020 was that you know, the Texas case to the Supreme Court against these voting procedures that impacted their state, and the U.S. Supreme Court just didn't even hear it. But nonetheless, yeah, I think these are all important issues to raise, and I think also draws attention to this fraud that voters might still not yet have heard about. I mean, that's one of the things that we're constantly fighting to do, is to let people know, hey, by the way, did you know that our Constitution now has, this abortion amendment in it, which, by the way, includes late-term abortion and everything else, and people are still shocked. They can't believe it. And it's like, well, yeah, that's what they meant to do, and that's what they're doing right now. So thank you, Senator, and to all of your colleagues for, I think no matter what, it's always important to be banging on the doors of these courthouses and saying, this is evil, this is wrong, and this needs to be challenged. And even if the court doesn't, well, these Supreme Court, they call it granting cert, hearing the case, but the more suits there are about this, the better it is. So I certainly salute you for doing this.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that and for appreciating it. And I just want to reiterate kind of what you were just saying there. When people go and file these sorts of cases, there's no guarantee, right? I mean, we go fight it. Sure. We believe we have a good argument, but we've seen a lot of them that just get blown up, or there's no standing, or you came too early, or now all sorts of the reasons to deny it. Who knows? We feel very good about this one, but the last point you were making, it's so important that we're out there fighting. I think that that's something that is in Michigan politics in particular. There's this culture of we can't win, so why bother fighting? And that's, I'm in the legislature, so I can say that's kind of
absolutely.
And I have a different philosophy than a lot of people up there. I think part of the reason we don't win is because we don't fight, and that includes, getting people out there who are excited about us. If you're not out there fighting these and making the argument, how are we trying to show the people of Michigan that we're on their side, and we want to create a really good future for them, when all we do is kind of, the left beat us again.
Play defeat, yeah.
Well, I don't want to derail your podcast or your
No, you're fine.
Here, but I think back to
we're hungry for content tonight because we're both exhausted, and it's great to have the opportunity to chat with you about these things. But yeah, going back to your point though, like with the courts, yeah, we saw this all throughout the litigation in 2020, and they just made every excuse not to hear anything. It was unripe in the spring. It was standing in summer, latches in fall, mootness in winter. There's always some reason why the courts can wash their hands of these things. But the reality is, every single thing the Democrats are trying to do with respect to elections is to facilitate fraud. And that's got to be the bottom line. We've seen, and there's a whole new tranche of bills they put in last week, which I'll put in a plug on these right now, actually, because we've got this new handy dandy tool at our website, rescuemichigan.com, where under Operation Watchdog, click on that link. There's a new 7 days in Lansing link. And Senator, you can tell me if there's any mistakes on here, but I'm going to put this out every Friday, starting 2 weeks ago. Every vote they took in the legislature in the past week. Every bill that got advanced to second or third reading in either chamber, and all the new bills they've put in. And even as far as just a couple of weeks ago, we're seeing new legislation. There was a bill. Let me see. Here we go. Hey, this is a wonderful bill. What do you think the intention of this one is? Allowing private companies to drive voters to the polls, which I don't know. Seems like that might be electioneering, but there you go. I mean, it just doesn't stop. Here's another
But then
one.
we get our Republican people to do that because we're constantly thinking in our echo chamber of, oh, the left does this, only the left does it. No, we need our Republicans to do it.
Yeah.
Like Senator Lindsay was saying, why do we constantly make our minds think that it's a Democrat thing? Because we can make it a Republican thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of the issue is Republicans have a lower propensity to commit election fraud. I mean, you got this one here. I mean, okay, drive voters to the polls. Yeah, if they legalize that, let's do it. But, you have this one here. Allow voters to apply for absentee ballots online with no signature verification. Well, that's only going to benefit people that are not able to, submit a valid signature because they're criminals. But anyway, hey, joining us, Patty EP is back. Hey, Patty, how you doing? Thanks for joining
us. Hi.
Good to see you. Right on. Anyway, we're just complaining about all these election fraud bills.
Yeah.
But thank you, Senator, for fighting the good fight. Jay in the chat asks, where was this filed? What do you expect the timeline to be? Would a favorable decision take effect prior to the next November's election? For example, to eliminate the 10 days of voting. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Senator?
Well, it was filed in, I think it's the 6th district. I'd have to pull up the complaint. It's federal court. It's filed in federal court. And the rest of your question kind of ties back to what we were already discussing. Unfortunately, this lawsuit is not the silver bullet. It's not going to undo if the legislature followed through as they did and passed enabling legislation statutes that make our elections, have the 9 days of early voting, or in some places, I guess, it left it up to local. So some of them will be even longer. So I don't know how long it's going to take. These things tend to take quite a while. But it's also something that ends up being a sort of, a major victory if we're able to get it, but then still requires follow-on work of fixing the underlying laws. I mean, the election code right now is awful. Now, fortunately, I put in I've drafted more legislation than I put in right now, but there are some really good things in the works to try to have, real photo ID, to try to have get voting back to be something like election day rather than election month plus 6 days, or whatever it ends up being. But hopefully it answers your question. It's not something that we really think is gonna totally turn the tide before 2024.
Yeah, at least with constitutional challenges like this, they're not incredibly fact intensive where there's like periods of years and going back and forth with discovery. It's just, is this going to be considered constitutional or not? But even still, nothing happens quickly in the courts. So, yeah. Right.
But at least we get to skip, I don't think they're going to try to bring me in to depose me or something, right?
Yeah. Well, and the frustrating thing too is that so many people just have, and I wonder how much of this is sincere and how much of it's just laziness, that people say, oh, well, the elections are a total fraud, so why bother do anything? And so they just sit at home and don't organize votes, don't mobilize people. And whatever fraud that exists in elections, I mean, it's not everything. And it's a burden we've always had. It's not like election fraud was invented in 2020. And people need to understand that life ain't fair. And we just have to work harder and out-organize our opponents. And hopefully all the bad bills they're passing is going to motivate people. And we have to get in it for the long haul, too.
I mean, we have to get in it for the long haul, too, because that's how we got in this place. They didn't start saying, it didn't take them just these 4 years to change Michigan's election law. They did it in a lot of other places as well. But it's a long-term concerted effort made by the left to say, hey, we don't think that in these states where there are good, secure elections that we have as good of a chance. We need to go get the right people in place and systematically, dismantle these. So from our perspective, that I think that requires an equal level of commitment on the other side to say, look, we didn't get in here overnight. We're not getting out overnight. We need to be committed and drive towards actual solutions that'll get us back on track.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just another obstacle, and it's just more we have to do to inform voters. Although at least the Democrats are making this a target-rich environment with all the things that they're passing.
That's it though too, is what it takes Democrats to do. Like I honestly I don't know what the actual percentage is, but I'd say probably 500,000 of our dollars is like 2 million of theirs because their messaging is so effed up. They have to make it look and spin it and do this and do that. Like we're
Yeah.
on the right side of history. We have the messaging. We have everything on our side. We just have to believe it and go at it and go for it.
Yeah, when it's done well, and that's not always the case on our side.
Yeah, I don't know if we have the
unfortunately.
messaging. I think we have the right ideas.
Yeah, I think one thing, and
There
this
you
is
go.
something that we is another thing, part of Operation Watchdog we did a few months ago, is keeping track of every single time the Democrats vote unanimously. And the reason
That's
being
good.
because, you have Democrat incumbents whose records we can expose, people like Regina Miller and Betsy Kofia, who are up for re-election and who are on board with every single thing the Democrats are doing. But then we also have Democrats running against Republicans where they're non-incumbents, where they don't have a record, and where they can say whatever they want. And they often cast themselves as moderates until the day they take office. Reggie Miller, oh, I'm just an average lady and I'm not a left-wing activist or anything. Of course, as soon as she gets elected, she does the same things. So to highlight the fact that Democrats vote unanimously almost every single time, with almost no exceptions. And this has been on everything from the most extreme anti-gun bills to the most extreme pro-abort bills to just about everything under the sun. It just goes on and on and on. Everything relating to big labor. And here's all these anti-gun bills, and there's more coming. We've been talking about this week. And I don't know, Senator, if you want to, if there's things you can't say, because I know you're in the arena, and I don't want to compromise your ability to work with your colleagues. But if you have any thoughts about some of these things that have been moving through Lansing, like we saw recently, one Democrat blocked the pro-abortion bills in the House. If there's any signs that those are going to move forward or not, if there's any Republicans thinking about that, or if you've been doing messaging on a number of things recently. The renewable energy mandate was another one. What's your sense on, how much more the Democrats going to try to ram through before the end of the year?
Yeah, it's a good question. And, a couple of things. Number one, I've actually been surprised by which issue sets my colleagues on the Republican side hold up well on and which ones they don't. So on the Senate side, we managed to keep 100% clean slate, if I'm right, if I remember correctly, on both Second Amendment and abortion laws earlier this year.
Yeah. And right to work too, I believe.
What's that?
And right to work repeals too. I think all the big labor
and right
stuff.
to work, which were all in the same week, and we kept a good week. I don't know, people just ate their Wheaties those mornings, but so the abortion issue, for all the conversation that happens nationally about that's like a losing issue or whatever, we actually stayed strong on it. But I think that's because in a post-Prop 3 world, most of the stuff that Democrats are throwing at the wall on the abortion issue is not the controversial stuff that's going to get you in trouble. I mean, it's going to get them in trouble, right? They want to go back to partial birth abortion and remove any standards for clinics or whatever they want to do, right? So I don't expect on that topic that on the Senate side, we're going to see people that are going to jump over and say, we want to embrace these abortion bills. And that's if the Democrats can get them through. To your point, they had problems in committee. I haven't heard that they fixed that, she's willing to get on board. So we hear a lot about as you said, the sort of Green New Deal that they have. I think we're on draft number 9, or maybe it's number 11 now of that set of legislation. They seem to have a really hard time getting internal cohesion with their caucus. What are the numbers going to be? What are the mandates, and what year will they be? So right now, we remain cautiously optimistic that they're having a harder time this fall rallying around their key initiatives than they had earlier this year. But that said, when they move together. And to your point on the 100% votes, that once they decide, once Gretchen Whitmer gets tough with them, it seems like they all get in line. 100% of them vote, no matter how crazy the vote is, and they put their political future in her hands. So
Yeah.
we'll see where that goes, because the other piece of all of this is we expect a pretty early end of session this year, whether it's November 9, November 2nd. So they're on the clock.
Sooner the better. But yeah, and to your point, that's kind of what the theme of tonight's show, I guess, was going to be, is the Democrats have total unanimity, no matter how radical things are. Almost, well, and maybe some of these things are just details they're working out. Like on the renewable mandate bill, for example, the thing that worries me is they'll say something crazy like we'll have to be 100% renewable by 2035, but then 5 years from now, DTE and consumers will come back and say, well, we did as much as we possibly could to make energy more expensive and improve our profit margins, but we couldn't make everything renewable. Then they'll just get a legislative fix in 5 years to, move the goalpost a little bit. And they'll still end up, raising the cost of energy and lowering the reliability of the grid as much as they possibly can, even with standards that are unrealistic. But
Until we're like a third world country and we
Yeah.
don't have power.
But we have the opposite problem. Republicans never seem to agree on much of anything. And we're seeing this now in Washington with the big Matt Gaetz versus Kevin McCarthy fight. Who would have thought Kevin McCarthy was lying to get elected? But likewise, even in Lansing. And that's another thing we see in the contrast. There's another page I made, which, by the way, some months ago, some person did not pay attention to what I say at the top of this partisan ranks page. It was not your office, obviously, Senator, but we made the point here. This is just a numerical observation of these people's voting records. Do not take this to say you're the most conservative lawmaker in Lansing. And again, Senator, this was not your office, but someone's office did, and it's like, no, don't do that. But the point of this being, you see these Democrats voting unanimously with their caucus almost entirely. And then the Republican spread goes from 55% voting with Democrats to 4%. So Republicans are all over the spectrum on different policy bills, whereas Democrats are moving with total unanimity. And I don't know what motivates some of these Republicans other than to think, if I placate the other side, if I work with the other side, they'll break something off for me, maybe. It's so bizarre because Democrats don't think this way.
They don't think
and
this
they don't
way
seem
at
to
all.
have this problem.
We're pathetic.
Yeah, I
We're
mean,
not
look,
pathetic. We're just misguided, and we need to unite, and we have hope.
Well,
Sorry, guys. That's
my
all I've
argument
got.
always to these, my argument always is, it doesn't help your cause if you're one of these. I'm a Republican. I'm in a tough seat, so therefore I got to be moderate as possible. It doesn't help with your constituents because the argument you're making when you vote with the Democrats is, hey, Democrats aren't so bad after all. But I think maybe a big reason why these things happen, like one of the things that I've always seen a big dissension within the GOP is on like corporate welfare subsidies, special interest deals, things like that. And it's just because that's the nature of the government. That's the nature of the power structure. They have these interests in Lansing that want things from you. And if you don't give it to them, they will be angry. And there's nobody in Washington or Lansing. I mean, there are a few. There are some that stick to their principles or are self-funders who are wealthy enough they don't care what the lobbyists do. But there's so few of them. And the institutional nature of it is we always want to be expanding government. We always want to be spending more money. But yet they also fail on the social issues a lot of the time too. So I don't know, but I know that you, Senator, ran for a seat, and I think you're one of the only people that knocked out an incumbent to win your race. And she was one of those people that was funding a lot of special interest subsidies. So so thank you for all that you have done in the state Senate. I'm sorry you don't have the ability to do more in the minority, but we have these key votes on our site, and you and I think Senator Runstead are always voting the right way, come hell or high water. And it's unfortunate that there's so few of you in the Senate, but I appreciate you fighting the good fight.
I appreciate it. I was hoping you'd scroll down to the rest of the Senate one.
Oh,
Where I am.
yes. Here, I'll put it back up. Sorry. Yeah, here we go. This is this is the
You-
Senate scores, and you can see again the Democrats voting unanimously, not less than 97.75% of the time. But then, yeah, here's Senator Runstead voting no 80% of the time almost,
Yeah.
and that's not an
And-
easy thing to do.
It depends on your frame of reference. Very easy for me to do. But as you said, I mean, I went in there against an incumbent. That wasn't even my original plan, but I see this, this kind of period in time as being sort of this crossroads for all of America. And it's not just Michigan. Are we going to have any government? Are we going to have a future? And it doesn't do me any good to go up there and say, okay, I left a good job behind. I fought tooth and nail to get this seat. Now I'm just going to turn around and, make deals with the lobbyists. And to your other point about, why are
Yep.
some of the people voting the way they are? There are two things to think about. Number one, I think this is a sort of Russell Kirk principle when he talks about conservatism. There is an inbuilt idea in conservatism that we have a higher value on variety of thought. That's just true, right? So sometimes that bleeds through because we actually have different opinions. We are not robots. The left is like, put the sheep hat on and just, vote the way you need to. But what you're talking about is going a step further, which there are a lot of cases that we see in Lansing where it's Republicans in this extreme minority situation trying to curry favor with the Democrats, in particular with the governor. And what I say to them over and over is, no matter what you think you're getting, and even if you do get it, it's not worth it, right? Like, our country is the byproduct of thousands of years of human development leading to, in like philosophy advancing, political philosophy advancing. And we had this magical moment at our founding where a lot of things came together and gave us a great opportunity. And then we get to be the luckiest people on earth living here. And it's up to us to maintain it. And every time that people go into government and they say, oh, I'm going to get, $1 million to pay back my buddy Joe who did this for me or whatever, like, you are betraying the great blessing that we have as people, as any American has it. But those of us who are in government have a responsibility to safeguard that and carry it on. And particularly in this moment where I think, we've strayed so far from what government is supposed to be doing in terms of securing personal liberty or protecting people's rights. So, I try to get that message. You mentioned I can't get as much done because we're in the minority. That's true. But I think that right now, one of the most impactful things that can be done is working with other people in government to try to just encourage them to say, don't do it. There's nothing. And by the way, not only is there nothing Governor Whitmer can give you that is worth betraying your country, also take some lessons from her. When she was there and she was in a minority and the Republicans wouldn't give them anything, she fought. She fought for what she believed. I believe very different things than she does, but she fought for it. And look where she is now. She didn't get there by, coming over and acting like, a beat dog under the table of the Republicans saying, give me some scraps. She fought and the Democrats fight. And the Republicans, if we value what we say we value, we should be fighting too.
Yeah, I think it's funny how a lot of lawmakers get into, especially when they're coming up on term limitations, that they want to have a legacy. They want to have PAs, those public acts. They want to have their name on things, and they can say, "See, look what I did." And the reality is, it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to remember you anyway. Like, there was the daughter of the host where we had our event tonight worked for some Republican lawmaker years ago. I don't remember the guy's name. I never heard of him. I forgot his name again. It doesn't mean anything in history. Just got to be able to look back and be proud of what you've done or what you've stood up to, I suppose. But
So
hopefully,
you think we won't be remembered for this podcast either, or what?
yeah, right. Well, hopefully in your second term, Senator, you'll be able to get a lot more things done, and hopefully the next election cycle will lay the groundwork for that. But of course, all that's going to rely on a lot of people going out and fighting the good fight and engaging a lot of voters, and that's not an easy thing to do. So I don't know what we want to do for the rest of the stream, folks. It's been almost an hour already. I'm inclined to call it a night because I'm exhausted. I think we were going to talk more about the battle in Washington with Kevin McCarthy and Matt Gaetz. But I don't want to put Senator Lindsay on the spot. And for that matter, I don't know what anyone else is going to get in trouble for saying on the stream. So maybe we should call it a night. And during the week,
I'm
we'll
always
come back.
in trouble on the stream for something. We can
let's
talk about
Christina.
Mackinac. Exactly. I could talk about Mackinac because I was the only one that was actually there.
You were there. Okay. You want to talk about Mackinac?
Oh, Senator Lindsay was there too.
All right. You guys can get yourselves in trouble and talk about Mackinac?
I
don't mind.
say, I mean, or that Detroit News article that just came out.
Yeah,
last night.
and the 100th email I've gotten this week about the state party from various people.
I mean, okay, to clarify my message when I said Mackinac wasn't happening, I was right because that wasn't Mackinac. It didn't fundraise a dime. They probably owe a lot of money. And the whole point of Mackinac was to be a fundraiser. And then instead it just became a big social party, which is fine. I love seeing Senator Lindsay and Allison. I love it. But at the same time, I can see them and at home down here. It was supposed to be something different and it wasn't. And the people that never went thought it was spectacular, and I thought it was very, very sad. And I was sad when they thought it was spectacular, and I was not. I was very vocal on a couple of people's Facebooks about it, and I got lambasted for that. And I'm sorry I have an opinion.
I saw a comment. I saw one comment from you.
Did you see that comment? Did you like that comment? It was a good comment. That might have been a wine comment.
Well, I mean, it struck me this was the first Mackinac Conference I've ever had in a presidential year. You didn't have multiple presidential candidates show up. No Trump, no DeSantis. Vivek was the only one that came. And it's never been like that before. You've got, I mean, I remember in 2010, you had everyone from Rand Paul to Scott Walker to all kinds of people. And the straw poll was like the big push. They did no marketing about the straw poll. Cause that's like what typically in a campaign, you're like, we want all of our supporters to go to Mackinac and vote in that straw poll. We can get that momentum. And it was like, did Christina just forget that that's a thing? Because they did have a straw poll, but they never used it to get any tickets sold. And yeah, I mean, they got all these high-powered, probably expensive guests, but usually the guests are politicians. Usually it's like Senator Barfnoble wants you to come to his reception where he's spending his money on you because he wants your support, huh?
They didn't have high-powered people. They had Carrie Lake, Zuby, which I don't even know if Zuby spoke, and Jim Caviezel. And then they had, Cara and Reps and, Neil Frisky. And
with all due respect to our state lawmakers, Mark Ashley Price says because they knew Trump would win the Republican nomination.
Show up. They kept announcing all these speakers. I'm like, who are these people?
Yeah, I mean, all the more reason. I mean, what about all the also-rans? What about, Asa Hutchinson? Why didn't he come? I mean, that was like when I was working on Ron Paul's campaign, that was like the first thing you want to do was go to Mackinac, have a surprise upset at the straw poll. Why didn't Perry Johnson pay everybody $200 to go to Mackinac to vote in the straw poll for him? And he could say, look at this. I won the straw poll. I made some news or something. Nothing like that was happening.
How my brain works is what happens next? So now how do we make Mackinac really, really good in 2 years? Do we have somebody that starts planning it now for the next administration and then has a little pretty bow? Because I would take that on in a heartbeat.
No,
I'm crazy.
Well, probably need to wait for another state chair term. I would say it's not going to happen until 2025. But that's the other thing too. I mean, we have him in the post-presidential years too.
First year, but we haven't.
And that's when you've got candidates for governor, AG, SOS. Like this is usually a huge thing. And
so do we plan it out now? Do we get sponsors? How do we figure this out so that we can just kind of put it in a pretty little bow for the next state party administration? And I would take that on in a heartbeat. I would. And then I just go here, this has already been done because I'm not looking for the fame that half these people are. But more importantly, I just want it done so the next administration can kind of already see that work's been done. Because it is a problem to get in and have to start planning for Mackinac 6 months out after you got reelected. That's almost impossible. So you almost need a stable
everybody did it.
Mackinac chair. Yeah, but everybody did it with the same I don't want to call it nepotism. That's not the right word, but the same flavor. Like you can't. That's impractical. But at the same time, you still had a same chair or same executive directors or same
Well,
kind of
I mean, that might be
staffing.
that might be the thing though, because these
The staffing's
conferences,
off.
the conferences were always about the candidates. It was about the
Yeah.
presidential candidates, the governor candidates, AG, SOS, all the congressmen, et cetera, et cetera. This conference was about Christina. And it was like, let's book these people that Christina Caramo wants
Ooh.
to shape this is the new messaging of our new GOP. It's these bomb throwers, which, and don't get me wrong, I like all of them, but
They say in the echo chamber though, we don't have bombs we don't have the money to get the bombs to the public. And even if we did, we would probably lose more voters. So I'm glad that they don't necessarily. Um,
yeah.
but back to the point is we had the same staff that kind of regurgitated from administration to administration at the MIGOP. So they knew how to run Mackinac. Now we don't.
Exactly.
So
They had
now,
institutional knowledge.
yeah, so now who does that fall on? Because I like to figure that out so I don't pick up the baton and run with it. So who do we fix? How do we fix that?
There are still folks out there. I mean, there's people that have been involved in Mackinac conferences and all kinds of political roles for a very long time. I just don't think they want to work with Christina, frankly. And I can't say I blame them.
Didn't
Yeah.
half the MIGOP staff just go work for Perry for this campaign? And
That wouldn't surprise me. But I mean,
No, that absolutely did happen.
well,
right, so like,
I
they're waiting in
remember
the
there
wings,
was
right?
there was a state party
I know where to
staffer,
find 'em.
and he contacted us to say, hey, just so you know, the day after the convention, I'm gone. And we're like, why are you leaving? And he says, because I got to feed my family. That was pretty much the end of him. So, I mean, that's the way that goes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's a good point. Hopefully, we could try to engage those people that know what the heck's going on for starting now.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the issue is that there's been this, there's this black and white paradigm. Either you're the Rhino corrupt establishment, or you're the MAGA patriots. And it's like, no, there's more than just these two camps. There's also a fraction. There's a factioning within the grassroots between people that really want to win elections and get things done, and people who want to be right, even if that comes at the cost of winning elections. And that's kind of why we end up here, where Democrats have now seized control of the governor, AG, SOS, Supreme Court, House, and Senate. Everything has been lost. And at some point, people
Everybody's
got to say,
hurting.
we kind of got to win before we can do anything else.
Everybody's hurting. That's what's
Yeah.
sad. Everybody loses when Democrats are in control, even Democrats. So we need to care about these people when they don't care about themselves.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Senator. I didn't mean to cut you off, or we didn't mean.
No, I mean, I was going to say two things. One is that I was probably one of the first people who advocated for not having Mackinac at all. I obviously failed, but
Might have been a good idea.
I think that my case was that the new grassroots, however you want to describe this, movement conservatism that has a lot of the buy-in, a lot of counties, a lot of the state committees, this now, they are not the money crowd. That's the point, right? And people, just as an observational thing, it never made sense to ask them to come to Mackinac. It just didn't. It makes a ton of sense to have big corporate sponsors, lobbyists and multi-client lobby firms, politicians with big PAC money, big donors. So I feel like that was something that early on, it was almost, I don't know what the motivation was, but to say we've got to do this because we've always done it. But looking back, if this administration had said, like, look, we're renting out a campground, bring your RV and your tent, like, we would have 3,000 people to send. And I'm partly making a joke here, right? But there is something about this, and I think more importantly, looking forward, no matter how the party shapes out, I mean, I hope that the new sort of grassroots activism never goes away. I hope the party never goes back to be totally the old guard, whatever. I think it needs to be both, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
But as a result, I think that as we look to the future, we need to think about more ways that it can work for people that are like, some of my door knockers, these people are just the most salt of the earth. They don't have disposable income. They want to be involved. They love their country. They're never going to make the Mackinac, right? And so that was another barrier that I think was not really thought about very well. And then the last thing is, I did want, if we're going to go here, to get people's impressions. So, I mean, that's Mackinac itself. We'll see where, it happened. I think that the bar was set low enough that they were able to claim some level of success, but that's, but then the more important story is the stuff about, is the party having more serious issues, these stories that came out, the financial stuff. I mean, I don't know how much all of you looked into them or what conversations you've had, but it's almost a different ball game than saying, look, if you raised $500,000 for Mackinac and you spent $550,000, like that is one category of problems that is a big problem. It's kind of different from some of what's being talked about is, is there an extra level of problems on the dollar side? I don't know if you all want to jump in on that or wait and see where it goes.
This is serious jail time if it's hashed out.
Yeah.
And I don't know who it falls on, because was there ever a real treasurer? Like, there's been 3 I know of. Who does it fall on? Does Christina go to jail?
There's a lot of issues with professionalism. And I think, and by the way, Mark, and thank you for the kind words, Mark, but but as you say, the main point is to win first members to win elections. And that goes to, I think, that you have to play your position. And if what you want to do is to hold rhinos accountable for bad votes and encourage lawmakers to pass good policy, you start an activist group like, say, Rescue Michigan. But if you're a state chair whose job it is to win elections, then you got to put all that aside and focus 100% on winning and hiring professional staff. And, that might mean hiring people who don't agree with you on everything, but know how to do the job. And as long as they can properly perform the tasks without, like in the case of Jason Rowe, blabbering to the media about how much he hates Trump, that should be okay, as long as you're a professional and doing what you need to be able to do to win the race. But I don't see any understanding at the state party of that's the state party is not supposed to be the vehicle for driving the Republican Party to the right. It's supposed to be the vehicle for driving the Republican Party into the offices of power, and let groups like gun rights groups and pro-life groups and every other advocacy group sort out within the caucus what issues they got to do. But this blurring of roles, I think, is a long-term problem, and I don't know if that's going to clear up soon. Emma Birch says, what crime is Emma referring to? Financial? It's a long story, Emma, but there's been some reports in the media about money not being accounted for properly, being in the wrong accounts, things that could lead to real problems.
You can't commingle funds between Fed and get it to the state and then use it for stuff that isn't even related to either. Like I can never do campaign finance because there is a lot of strict rules on it, but it all refers to campaign finance regulations.
Yeah. When we had a pretty big change in our county GOP in the last executive committee cycle. We made sure we kept our same treasurer because he knows what he's doing. And it's like, that's something you cannot leave to a newbie, period. So there you go.
You need a good treasurer. That's one thing when I talk to candidates is I cannot give you any treasurer advice. Just get one. Ever.
Yeah. I mean, I know some good ones, and I can't say that they're all available, but that's something where you gotta be someone, you have to know exactly what you're doing, and they don't make it easy. It's not an easy field of work, but anyway, all right. I think we should call this a stream, but Senator, if there's anything else you want to get off your chest and what's going on in Lansing you'd like to share with us, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you dropping in, and I'll be sure to update the title and description of the video so that people know that you're on tonight, and hopefully more people watch throughout the rest of the week and the days to come.
No, just thank you for having me, and for you've done work on what we're trying to accomplish for a long time. I hope you keep doing it. I do love the Operation Watchdog, the features
really
you have, and I know you've rolled out some different ones. I often point people at like county parties who want to get a sense of who's voting where towards your site. I think you do a good job. And thank you so much for having me on tonight.
Hey, our privilege. Thank you, sir. And thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back at our regular time next Sunday. And who knows, maybe I'll do some other stuff during the week, but definitely making up for lost time on the stream because I know I was gone for a little while. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Thanks as always for all you do for Liberty. Hope you guys get some good door-to-door days before the weather gets too cold. But it's still a lovely season out there for knocking on doors and talking to neighbors.
Yes, it is.
So thank you guys for all you do. And until next time, peace out.